The decision to make a sequel was actually done before the first one was even released. Everyone was so happy with what they were seeing in the test screenings that it was kind of a foregone conclusion that we were going to do a sequel. We had actually started to have sequel meetings before the release of the first film. We brought back Steven Susko and the same creative team, Taka and Shimizu and Sam and Rob and Nathan Kahane, and we started to kind of spitball and brainstorm ideas.
やっぱり僕がそのグラッチのパート1はリメイクで、これももちろんリメイクなんですけど、今回のパート2もうこれでジオンシリーズとしていうと6本目なので、もう同じだったら多分パート1のようにこう日本のジオン2のそのままリメイクっていうメインの話は一緒ですってことだったら僕も断ってたと思うんですね。で楽しめなくなってきてるところもありますし、やっぱ作る過程を僕自身も楽しまないと面白いものができないと思うので、僕からも僕監督として起用してくれるんだったら話をもっと変えたいっていう意見も言いましたし、それにアメリカのプロデューサー陣も脚本家も含めてやっぱりオリジナルにはないこともやりたいっていう意識がパート2で働いたんだと思います。
I think that at the heart of Ju-on 2, there was a storyline which we felt was probably a little too close that we had seen, a little too close to things we had seen in American movies, in some American classics, as well as upcoming films. So I think that we kind of wanted to take elements from it, but come up with a different storyline.
Kind of split the difference.
I thought there'd be a bit of a cultural divide given the two different storytelling traditions, but it was so much wider than I ever could have imagined.
And then we play a very similar story where the next morning they wake up, the father's missing.
僕自身がいつも考えてるのはやっぱり新鮮さがあることと、その説明に時間を割かない脚本であることっていうのはすごくいつもそこをポイントとして見てますね。
In one of our early story meetings, Taka and Shimizu were debating with us the need for a protagonist and for even a central narrative, which, to be honest, would be kind of fascinating and interesting to come at it from a completely different narrative perspective. But given the discussions that had already occurred and some of the other pressures, studio and otherwise, we just felt that we needed certain traditional American storytelling.
But there's still a little girl in this Erica character.
いや、それはもう毎回もう口論し合いながらアメリカのプロデューサーとも戦いながらやっていくんですけれども、日本のホラーの J ホラーって言われるものの怖さっていうのには理解できない怖さっていうのがあるんですね。でそれを保ってほしいと言われつつ、別のところでこれじゃ分からないからもっとアメリカの人分からないからもっと
空港から家に来たら
ですね、大体口論の末にそんなの撮りたくないとか、それじゃ絶対に怖くないから俺を信じてくれとか、お互いに喧嘩し合いながらやっていくんですけど、その作業が面白いといえば面白いので、今回もまた編集の段階に入ったら多分そういうことが起こってくると思うんですけど、それも楽しんでできればと思ってます。
We don't have a story right now because everything we've been thinking about has came apart because of this morning.
All we know is that we need to put these kind of key elements that an audience demands, and how can we find a way to do that respects their process and what's important to them in the movie and satisfies the requirements that we think the audience bring to this. And most of it has to do with how much of a story you're telling. Does it have traditional beginning, middle, and end? And that's been the ongoing dance.
アメリカが言うことをいやそんなのつまんないよで終わっちゃうのは簡単なんだけど、それをいくらやってても一緒にものは作れないので、やっぱり彼らが何を求めてるのかっていうそのコアの部分を探すっていうのかな。あとは逆にこちらが出した提案をいやこれ面白いでしょっていくら言ってもそれはアメリカ人が面白くないって言えばそれは ね、やはりそのワールドワイドにこれは公開する映画なので、お客さんに受け入れてもらえないものを投げてもしょうがないわけだから、だからまあ、それはやっぱりたくさん球を投げ続けて彼らが何に反応するかを見るっていうことをまあやるしかないっていう、まあだから普通の映画のを作る以上にやっぱ疲れますよね、そこはね。
There is definitely a push and pull because I think we need to infuse a certain American sensibility into the story and into the script and into the film so that an American audience can embrace it, enjoy it, and make it their own, while keeping the qualities of J-horror that make it unique and don't make it like every other film that's being released in the United States. So, and that's probably the toughest and probably the most grueling part of the script development is those long conversations, debates between, that kind of gray area between kind of American sensibility and Japanese sensibility, and that made for a lot of long meetings.
本当何十回どころか100回超えるミーティングをしたと思うんだけども。
I feel like there could be a richness in making her 12 or 13.
That type of actor who can really act well is a different problem.
If Erica and Aubrey are experiencing the same hauntings, if they're both going through the same thing,
We're losing a lot of kind of interesting kind of development.
It's not about what we're talking about. That's
just because we're telling a different story doesn't necessarily mean it's not a horror movie with the lead character and a little kid. So.
Try to make this as interesting and unusual and complex and in some ways as unresolved and underexplained a story as we could while keeping it within the bounds of a recognizable American movie. So many people responded to the fractured narrative in Grudge 1. We wanted to push that as well, so that kind of evolved into these 3 distinct stories which interweave at different points, and once we kind of embraced that structure, that kind of started dictating what direction we headed in.
でとにかくその主人公のエピソードっていうのを、主人公を誰に設定するかっていうのがサラが戻ってきてくれるのか戻ってきてくれないのかってことも含めて、戻ってきてくれるんだったら前作のカレンの例えば妹って設定にできるけども、戻ってきてくれないんだったらじゃあ全然違う人にしなきゃいけないとかっていうので結構2点3点してですね、で最終的に今ある、カレンの妹のストーリーになったんですけども、ただそれもカレンの妹のストーリーってなってからもじゃあどういう話にするのかっていうのでものすごい何度もやり直して、で本当に最後の瞬間にこれならいけるっていうのが見つかったって感じですね。それ山のようにあるからな。1000個ぐらいあるかも。ソニーから言われたのはなぜか双子にこだわってて、カヤ子が双子だったっていう、それはソニーに限らず最初にアメリカ側でディベロップされてたプロットっていうのもなんかカヤ子が双子だったっていう、双子にこだわってましたね。なんか双子って映画で見るとなんかインチキな感じがするんですよね。なんかその。
It was a challenge. I mean, in the first Grudge, it was kind of, the Grudge kind of radiated from the Williams family moving into this house. I mean, everything kind of, spun off of that Yoko storyline, Karen storyline, Nakagawa storyline. This one is really kind of 3 separate storylines happening in 2 different time periods and in 2 different places. And so it was a little bit more difficult, and I'm not sure that we've completely cracked it yet. We've actually taken some alternate takes, like there's a scene with Allison trapped in the closet where Kayako's coming down, but we've also done an alternate take where Aubrey's coming down.
When you open them again.
And so we're kind of hedging our bet a little bit because we're not entirely sure what will work and what won't work as far as integrating the 3 storylines. We wanted to have Sarah back, so we needed to find a way to justify that character remaining in this film and find a way to kind of build a storyline around what would be kind of an extended cameo. So that's why we decided to make Aubrey Karen's sister and develop the Chicago storyline.
We were absolutely intent on getting her back. She was such a huge part of the success, both creative and box office-wise of the first film, that it was really important to get her back.
まあアメリカ映画は明らかに戦闘が多いですよね。日本の映画って極端に言えば、まあ、僕がプロデュースする映画の場合割と僕に全て任せてもらってるので、まあもちろんその予算はこのぐらいとかそういう制約はあるし、もちろん監督のやりたいことも聞きますが、まあ、いろんなディシジョンメイキングは自分一人でできるので、まあやりやすいといえばやりやすい。でも間違った時に誰も直してくれないっていう欠点もあるけども。
As someone who spent many months working with the writer Steven Sesko on the script and with Taka, our producer, and with Shimizu, our director, I think everyone was very proud of the script that resulted.
Everyone worked really hard knowing that we were bumping up, and we actually pushed a couple times, and finally we just cracked it right, really a couple weeks before we started shooting, thank God.
But there's also a vulnerability. The scene's tight and really focus on the scary of it all.